an associate professor at KTH, the Royal Institute of Technology. And I lost my screen here. She works with the integration of sustainability, including equality and social justice. And at KTH, she teaches teachers and works with them in educational development that is informed by research. Before she was in KTH, Anne was working with us at the Upser Group in Uppsala University, and she researched identities, norms, and values, as well as how they are produced in higher education. She's also contributed to establishing the Uppsala University Sustainability Initiative and coordinated one of their 5 sub-initiatives, the Climate Change Leadership Initiative. So with this background, Anne is now especially interested in computing education and its role for sustainability. And I think we're going to see part of that in today's presentation. Thank you, Anne, for being here. Floor is yours. I think you're muted, Anne.
Yes, no. Thank you for this wonderful introduction. That sounded good. Let's see if I can live up to this introduction. Can you see my slide? Perfect. Yes, so thank you so much for inviting me to talk about emotions and raising some questions about education and role modeling. Emotions are more and more recognized as important for learning and are gaining increasing attention in research. Recent reviews suggest that there is hardly anything known about emotions. Yet I would say that we know some things from identity research, for example, which is my main area of interest and has been since the past 10 years. Theoretically, there's also a lot of research to draw on in sustainability education research, which has become very interesting for me in the past years. So I want to use this as an opportunity to bring some of my more recent work into discussion with you, really keen on hearing some of your thoughts and questions, and also knowing that some of you also are working and thinking about emotions. And yes, I would talk about emotions in the context of computing as a discipline and in relation to questions about how we might understand education and role models. Let me start by saying that there are lots of emotions in computing education, even though that computing education in research is often presented as a quite rational endeavor. I'll show you something from my PhD work, where I have followed students through their education and have described experiences of participation in the discipline. And participation being doing, thinking, and feeling as something that is socially constructed among students and teachers and learning material and so forth. And I have described 7 ways of experiencing participation and said that students coming with different experiences and ideas about computing often come to see that computing is mostly about creating technical artifacts and especially technical back-end problem solving. And I want to show you one quote that shows that technical back-end problem solving is not only rational, but very emotional also. Like Finlay saying at the end of his 3rd study year, when you have managed to divide the problem into parts and merge the small solutions, and when you in the end have created something that seems to give the result that you were aiming for, when you realize that this can work, then I feel this is fun. And then he become a junkie that you want to feel this feeling again and again. And then you work towards that feeling that can exist in other situations as well. So I think what you see here is that the students do not only learn, they don't only find things that they find interesting, but they also develop quite an emotional, effective relationship to the discipline. Something that they then also strive for and work towards in other situations as well. So this is quite old work. After that, I was then wondering, how does that happen in classrooms? How is our feelings and these identities, how are they produced in education? What identities are offered and how? So that made me then do ethnographic studies in 2 different classrooms, one being a very popular programming course and another being a course on human-computer interaction, where the students are supposed to learn about human, computer, and how that can go together. And what I saw there also, again, is that the identities that are offered and kind of developed are quite emotional and effective. Like, for example, and just a brief explanation of what I did. So I said in the lectures, in the labs with the students, and observed what happened. And for example, the teacher says, explaining the programming language C is not so rich. We need to care about if we need 32 bits or 16 bits. It's troublesome. It looks complicated. You will not need to work like that in the future, but now we will work on such a level. You need to have met this, understood it, created something. And what the students do is they really it's popular course, so they really get into this. They program in the labs, and even when they come home on the sofa day and night, they really want to learn this. And they are frustrated, but they get these extra kicks, they say, when they manage this. They learn how to talk with a machine in ways that they don't get messages. They learn to become this person that understands the machine and also can get a bodily relationship to the machine. So for example, the teacher is showing code and then say, there's an error there, find it. If you have done this before, you feel it in your body. So you also can see this affection or emotion, the relationship between the student and the machine that is being developed on an effective level. And I could, and another example is that, for example, a student and several students saying that they become maskin-nära personer. So I'm a person close to the machine. They become close to the machine. And I dream about writing my own compiler and programming language. So it's also dreaming about it. I would suggest that there's really an emotional attachment that the students develop here to the machine, and the student or the people and machine becoming a bit of one, understanding at least the student and understanding the machine. And also developing emotions in that relationship. And then the students are in another course where they are prompted to become a computing personally that is emotionally connected, not to the machine, but to users and society. And here you can see, that's one slide that the students are seeing. Here they are designing for pleasure. And that I think is a shift towards feeling not with a machine, not having a relationship, an emotional relationship to the machine, but to the user. And I think if you want to design for pleasure, then you really have to have this empathetic or emotional connection relationship to a user, really understanding what pleasure would mean for a certain type of person. Like, for example, the teacher also says, if you design a service, you have control over which people use the service. So to design it requires understanding the lifestyle of people. And I would say it's not more than understanding, but really feeling what the user can feel if you want to achieve that. So that, I would say, then is another emotional affective identity that is required, or that the students are prompted to develop. And then another identity that I would describe, having done an ethnographic study in a sustainability course. And here you can also see, this is 2 slides from that course, students seeing a video, There Is No Tomorrow, 6 degrees of warming, what would that look like? So also here, the students are prompted to develop a relationship to nature that is based on emotions, like, okay, the nature is really, or the planet is really feeling unwell. We need to care for that. So I would say that emotions are very important in identity development, and I'll talk about role modeling in the coming slide. I also want to just briefly say, what tensions are there between these affective identities? What connections may there be also? And how can we teach to allow these connections to evolve also, so that we can work together and kind of use and perhaps perform with different identities in different moments. Finally, concluding, I have worked, and I'm thinking about the notion of care to capture some of what I have been talking about here. Care is about relationships between two objects or subjects, and is quite effective. So I wonder then, what do we in computing and educators and students are supported to feel for, care about, have relationships with? And what ways of caring are offered? Also, are there hierarchies? And also, what are we aiming for? And if we want to understand this in terms of learning, I think it's quite a challenge. We are not at all, I think we're very much in the beginning there. But I think it's easier to think about role models there, to maybe not wait until we can formulate learning objectives here, but think about what different role models for care do we have and can we offer as educators, and do we see in the rooms among the students? Yes, I think that is what I wanted to say. Perhaps one final question: how can we educators care for students who are living in this lively planet, who is who is ill, and supporting them to kind of connect different identities and ways of caring as computing students and professionals? Thank you. I'm really curious to hear what you think.
Thank you so very much, Anne, for a very interesting presentation. And everyone is welcome to write questions in the chat or raise your hand like Anna did. Welcome to ask your question, Anna.
And I'm so glad that you're doing research on emotions. You know, I'm doing that too.
Yes, I was thinking of you.
So I can tell you what we found in the study, that because we were interested to see why working on hands-on when learning to program is so important, while just reading and discussing and reflecting is less beneficial for learning. And right now there is one hypothesis that if you work hands-on at the keyboard, or you can express it if you have control of the computer or whatever, it seems to be something happens, and this is good for the long-term memory. And in the black box of something happens, what we know is that this contains emotions. So we have compared this group of students who were listening, talking, discussing when they learned, and the students who also use their hands. And these students significantly lower their stress level and increase their confidence. So one hypothesis might be that when you use your body in some way and learn, it influences emotions. And this has influenced long-term memory and learning. And actually, the persons from cognitive neuroscience, they could see the brain, people who had got this higher confidence, which is, I find very interesting. They could see it in the superior prefrontal cortex. I just have to say those words because I think it's fun. So I think emotions are really important for learning.
Thank you so much, Anna. And Anne, sorry, we have to. Sorry, Annie, that I don't let you answer at the moment. We'll take it to the discussion afterwards.